All right, everybody, welcome back to another solution from TechHub.Training. My name is Caden, and I'm super excited to take you through today's challenge, which is a Power Automate challenge called Automating the Bean Counting. I had a lot of fun writing this one, and I hope y'all have a lot of fun solving it too. So let's go ahead and dive into kind of our background, our solution, and well, hopefully I'll answer any questions that you might have. So here's our flow. But before we get to that, let's go ahead and look at to our email dump. This is what I called my little table that I created to go ahead and put all those beans counted in there. So a little background on this problem then. Basically, the whole idea is you've started working at this company, and as part of your job, you get an automated email that comes in every day with a certain number that you're trying to keep track of day by day. Now, a little fun fact about this challenge was actually inspired by something that I do at my work every day, and that we've also automated using Power Automate. So, just for reference, this kind of a situation can really happen in the workplace and does really happen, and Power Automate's super helpful. So, uh, basically, what we're going to do is we're going to use Power Automate to find just the text within that email that we want and put it into this Excel file that we keep online here. So, how do we do that? Let's go ahead and dive into that. Now, if you haven't used Power Automate before, or if you hadn't before, I hope this wasn't too hard. If you're a little bit lost and that's why you're looking at this video, I'd go ahead and recommend looking at other Power Automate challenges on our Tech Hub website. This one, I'd say, is a little bit more advanced and doesn't teach you as much how to set up Power Automate, which the setup is half the battle with making sure everything is connected all right between your email that you use, your Outlook, your Excel, all that jazz. So go ahead and look at that if you haven't gotten this far. But for those of you who've solved this already, let's go ahead and dive into what I did here. We started by adding this trigger when a new email arrives. Now, the important thing I want to identify with this step is which email that you use, right? Because if you don't specify which email, it's going to try to run this program on every email. And if you don't use the right one, then you're going to be really confused, like I was when I started testing this. So make sure that you have that right email in here, such that when you send an email to yourself, the email that you receive comes from the right one, if that makes sense. Anyway, for most of you, that probably won't be a problem. So moving on, we have our next HTML to text feature. So this tool, I went ahead and put that in because when an email arrives, the body of that email or all of that email, which is essentially what you could output into the next step, comes through in what's called HTML, the coding language, right? And HTML has a lot of tags that contain a lot of metadata. So this tool, HTML to text, will take all of that and kind of strip most of that down to the bare essentials of what you need. Now, it won't strip it down to just the text within the email. It'll still retain a bit of the metadata, so you're still going to have to do some text functions to get down to what you really, really need, which we're going to address in this next step. So this next step then adds a row into a table, and it actually does a couple different things, right? Because you're adding a row to a table, but then you're also adding it to a specific table in a specific place. And for our purposes, we're actually going to use a function to trim it down to exactly the text that we need, which in our case is numbers. So the first thing you're going to want to do is set up this tool such that it accesses the right location, the right document library, the right file, and the right table. So 4 layers deep there. And then this fifth layer, which is in the advanced parameters for what column, which in our case is beans counted. You can see up here, beans counted and beans counted. So once you get that far, you know that your step triggers, your flow will trigger when an email arrives. It'll turn that HTML to a text, and then it'll put it in a table. But how do you make it so it gets just those numbers? Well, one of the most powerful parts of Power Automate is this idea that you can use functions within pretty much any of the tools to further refine what you take from one step and put into the next step, right? So in this case, You can see here that we reference this HTML to text tool about 4 times or so. And each of those times, again, is referencing this output that comes from HTML to text. So in order to come up with this code, because I'm not particularly fluent in how PowerAutomate likes its code, I went ahead and asked uh, Copilot, which is now built into PowerAutomate, to write me a substring that would find the text between counted and beans. Like we said before, this email that you get is automated, and so it looks the same pretty much every time it comes to you every day. So what that allows us to do is find a text function that references two absolutes, right? It's always going to have counted, it's always going to have beans. Whatever is in between that, we're going to trim that up, and that's going to be what we're going to enter into our table. So Copilot actually wrote this for me, which is a substring that takes, well, I suppose we can let Copilot also walk you through this. What it does is it takes the index of this output, right, the index of this part, and finds this counted index. And counted has 8 characters in it, which is why we see in this next step, it's going to take that input or that index and add 8. So that'll move the starting position to the end of counted. So then this next chunk will take beans and find the index of that. And then what we're going to do is subtract the index of beans and the index of that counted 8, so the end of counted, and that'll calculate the length of the substring between counted and beans, which is exactly what we're looking for. So basically in this fifth one, you can see it, we put all of that together. And in my case, I added a trim function, which allows us to trim off any leading spaces. So in case there's an extra space before or after, we go ahead and trim those, and that'll allow it to go into our Excel table, and Excel will actually recognize that string as numbers because it doesn't have any leading or trailing spaces. So that's kind of a lot, but like you can see here, Copilot will walk you through exactly the kind of code that you need. And that's how you take this kind of complicated process of finding exactly the string that you want and break it down into getting, well, exactly the string that you want. If you have any questions, feel free to post those in the comments as well. I'd love to see y'all's solution. And I hope you really enjoyed this project. It was a lot of fun for me to make, and we'll catch you next time.